The hospital corridor smelled of antiseptic and quiet tension, the kind that settles into the walls after long nights of waiting and whispered prayers. Nurses moved softly from room to room, their shoes barely making a sound against the polished floor. In one of the maternity rooms, a young woman sat upright on her bed, pale and exhausted, her hands trembling as she adjusted the thin blanket over her legs. She had given birth only hours earlier, her body still aching, her heart still trying to catch up with the reality of becoming a mother. Instead of warmth and congratulations, she was facing hostility that cut deeper than physical pain. Her mother-in-law stood near the door, arms crossed tightly against her chest, eyes sharp with disapproval. There was no smile, no trace of joy at the arrival of a new life. Her voice was cold and impatient as she spoke, telling the young woman that she did not belong here, that she should leave the hospital immediately. She spoke of shame, of disappointment, of how this child had complicated everything. Each word landed like a slap, echoing in the small room. The young mother tried to speak, but her throat tightened, and only a faint whisper came out. She was alone, abandoned at the most vulnerable moment of her life. The argument escalated quickly. The mother-in-law accused her of trapping her son, of bringing disgrace to the family. She insisted that the hospital stay was unnecessary, that the girl should pack her things and go somewhere else, anywhere else. The baby slept quietly in the bassinet beside the bed, unaware of the storm raging just a few feet away. The young woman looked at her child, tears blurring her vision, wondering how joy could turn into fear so quickly. She had imagined this moment differently, surrounded by support, not rejection. As the tension reached a breaking point, footsteps echoed down the corridor, firmer and more deliberate than the soft steps of nurses. The door opened, and an unexpected guest entered the room. The atmosphere shifted instantly, as if the air itself had changed. The mother-in-law froze mid-sentence, her face draining of color. She recognized the man immediately. He was someone she had not expected to see, someone whose presence carried authority and consequences. The man's voice was calm but firm as he asked what was going on. He looked from the young mother to the older woman, taking in the scene with a steady gaze. There was no anger in his expression, only quiet determination. The mother-in-law tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat. For the first time since entering the room, she seemed unsure of herself. The power she had wielded moments before slipped away. He stepped closer to the bed, speaking gently to the young woman, asking if she was all right. She nodded weakly, tears finally spilling over. He then turned back to the mother-in-law and made it clear that her behavior was unacceptable. He reminded her that this was a hospital, a place of healing, not a battlefield for family grudges. He spoke of respect, of responsibility, and of the law, each point delivered calmly but with undeniable weight. The mother-in-law stood silent, her mouth slightly open, unable to respond. The nurses, alerted by the raised voices earlier, lingered near the door, watching as the situation de-escalated under the unexpected guest's control. Without raising his voice, he dismantled every accusation, exposing them for what they were, cruelty born of pride and fear. He made it clear that the young woman and her child were protected, that no one had the right to force her out or intimidate her. Slowly, the older woman's confidence crumbled. She muttered a few weak words, but they carried none of the venom from before. Her eyes avoided everyone in the room as she realized she had lost control of the situation. The unexpected guest did not need to threaten or shout. His presence alone was enough to silence her. After a tense pause, she turned and left the room without another word, the door closing softly behind her. The young mother exhaled deeply, as if she had been holding her breath for hours. The man reassured her that she was safe now, that help was available, and that she did not have to face this alone. A nurse stepped in, offering water and adjusting the baby's blanket. The room felt warmer, calmer, filled once again with the quiet miracle of new life. For the first time since giving birth, the young woman allowed herself to smile faintly as she looked at her child. Elsewhere, far from the quiet hospital room, another confrontation was making headlines and sparking heated debate. On a live television set, the atmosphere was anything but calm. What was meant to be a routine appearance quickly turned into a fiery exchange when Tom Cruise found himself in a heated confrontation with Joy Behar on The View. The discussion, initially focused on film and career, shifted abruptly toward personal beliefs and public responsibility, and the tension was immediate. Tom Cruise, known for his intense personality and unwavering convictions, did not shy away from defending his views. As Joy Behar pressed him with pointed questions, the conversation grew sharper, the tone more confrontational. The audience could feel the shift as Cruise's patience wore thin. His voice rose, not in anger alone, but in frustration at what he perceived as misrepresentation and disrespect. He challenged the narrative being pushed, insisting on being heard on his own terms. Joy Behar, equally unyielding, pushed back, questioning his stance and the influence of celebrities on public opinion. The exchange became a clash of perspectives, each refusing to back down. Cameras captured every expression, every pause, every sharp retort. The studio audience sat in stunned silence as the argument unfolded live, raw and unfiltered. Finally, the tension reached a breaking point. Cruise leaned forward, his expression intense, making it clear that he would not continue the conversation under those conditions. His words were firm, decisive, and final. Without waiting for a response, he stood up, removed his microphone, and walked off the set. Gasps filled the studio as the cameras scrambled to adjust. The hosts were left momentarily speechless, the magnitude of the moment sinking in. Both situations, though worlds apart, revealed the same underlying truth. Moments of confrontation have the power to expose character, to strip away pretense, and to redefine relationships. In the hospital room, an unexpected guest restored dignity and protection where cruelty had taken hold. On live television, a heated confrontation laid bare the limits of tolerance and the cost of standing one's ground. In each case, silence followed the storm, heavy with consequence, leaving everyone involved to reckon with what had just unfolded. The early morning light filtered through the narrow hospital window, casting pale stripes across the walls and the quiet room. Machines hummed softly, keeping rhythm with the fragile calm that followed a long and painful night. The young woman lay still on the bed, her body drained, her emotions raw. Childbirth had taken everything out of her, yet the exhaustion was nothing compared to the heaviness pressing on her chest. She had imagined this day for months, dreaming of warmth, of family gathered close, of gentle words and reassurance. Instead, she was bracing herself against cruelty that felt deliberate and calculated. Her mother-in-law had arrived without warning, her presence filling the room with tension almost immediately. There were no congratulations, no questions about the baby's health. Instead, she spoke sharply, criticizing the young woman's decisions, her background, even her right to be there. She claimed the birth had brought embarrassment, that the family would now have to deal with consequences they never wanted. Each sentence was harsher than the last, delivered with the confidence of someone who believed they held all the power. The young mother tried to defend herself, but her voice shook, weakened by exhaustion and shock. She held back tears, not wanting her newborn to be surrounded by anger in their first hours of life. The baby slept peacefully, tiny fingers curled into fists, completely unaware of the hostility unfolding nearby. The contrast was unbearable. New life on one side, bitterness on the other. The mother-in-law insisted that the young woman leave, claiming she had no place in the family anymore, no right to stay in the hospital under their name. As the argument escalated, nurses exchanged uneasy glances from the hallway. Hospital rules were clear, but family conflicts were often delicate, and intervention required careful timing. Before anyone could step in, the sound of steady footsteps approached. The door opened, and a man entered who clearly did not belong to the chaos. His presence was composed, grounded, and instantly commanding. The room fell silent. The mother-in-law turned, ready to continue her tirade, but froze when she recognized him. Her face tightened, color fading as realization set in. This was not someone she could intimidate or dismiss. His eyes were calm but observant, taking in the scene without judgment. He asked a simple question, but the authority behind it was unmistakable. "What is happening here?" The older woman attempted to explain, stumbling over her words, suddenly defensive instead of aggressive. The man listened, then turned his attention to the young mother, speaking softly, asking if she felt safe. The shift was immediate. Someone was finally acknowledging her pain, her humanity. Tears rolled freely now, no longer held back. With measured clarity, the man addressed the mother-in-law, explaining that her behavior was unacceptable and would not be tolerated. He spoke of boundaries, of the law, of the hospital's responsibility to protect patients. Each sentence dismantled the older woman's control piece by piece. Unable to respond, the mother-in-law stood silent, her authority evaporating. The power she believed she held had vanished in seconds. Without another word, she turned and left, her footsteps echoing down the corridor, far less confident than when she arrived. The room exhaled. Nurses stepped in, offering comfort and reassurance. The young mother cradled her baby, whispering promises of safety and love, finally able to believe them. While that private battle ended quietly, another confrontation was unfolding in front of millions of viewers. Bright studio lights illuminated a familiar set, polished and professional, designed for conversation, not conflict. Tom Cruise sat across from Joy Behar, initially relaxed, smiling as he discussed his latest project. The exchange was light at first, playful even, drawing laughter from the audience. But the tone shifted when the conversation veered toward personal beliefs and public influence. Joy Behar pressed him with pointed questions, challenging his views and the role celebrities play in shaping public opinion. Tom Cruise responded firmly, his expression tightening as he felt misunderstood. He spoke passionately, defending his perspective, emphasizing personal responsibility and freedom of thought. The discussion grew sharper, the air thick with tension. Neither side was willing to retreat. As the exchange intensified, the studio audience grew quiet, sensing something unscripted was unfolding. Cruise's frustration became visible, his words faster, more forceful. He accused the conversation of becoming disrespectful, of crossing a line from discussion into provocation. Joy Behar, unwavering, pushed back, insisting on accountability and transparency. The clash of personalities was undeniable, each representing a different worldview, neither willing to concede. The moment reached its peak when Cruise paused, took a breath, and made his stance clear. He would not continue under these conditions. His decision was swift and deliberate. Standing up, removing his microphone, he delivered a final statement about respect before walking off the set. Gasps rippled through the studio. Cameras struggled to keep up as producers scrambled behind the scenes. The host sat stunned, the weight of the moment hanging heavy in the air. In the aftermath, social media erupted. Supporters praised Cruise for standing his ground, while critics accused him of overreacting. Clips replayed endlessly, dissected from every angle. The confrontation became a symbol of larger cultural divides, sparking debates far beyond the studio walls. What had begun as an interview transformed into a defining moment, one that revealed how quickly dialogue can turn into conflict when deeply held beliefs collide. Both stories, though vastly different in scale and setting, shared a common thread. They were about power, about voice, and about the moment when silence becomes impossible. In the hospital room, an unexpected guest shifted the balance, restoring dignity and safety where cruelty had taken root. On live television, a public figure chose to walk away rather than compromise his sense of respect. In each case, confrontation forced truth into the open, leaving lasting consequences. When the noise faded and the rooms grew quiet again, what remained was clarity. The young mother, holding her child, understood she was no longer alone. Tom Cruise, stepping away from the spotlight, reaffirmed his boundaries. Both moments served as reminders that confrontation, though uncomfortable, can also be transformative. It can expose injustice, redefine limits, and remind everyone involved that dignity, once challenged, must be defended.